So let's quickly look at the table of contents actually, just so we can get a look at the flow of information here. So we started the book of prayer. This is level 3. This book of prayer, level 3 here, is an amalgamation, yani, a merger of several explanations of Abu Shuja. I actually had started merging explanations of Abu Shuja some years ago by handwritten copy that I have. And I called it Al-Ijtima', a merger of the explanations of Abu Shuja. But that's not the name of this book here. This book is Sweetness of Fiqh, and we're in the book of prayer. So we're in the book of prayer, and we started with the obligation of prayer. And then we talked about the prayer times, and that's most of all what we've been talking about. We talked about the hadith of Jibreel teaching the Prophet the prayer times, alayhi salatu wassalam. And we talked about when prayer is forbidden, times when prayer is forbidden. That's under the chapter of prayer times. And then we talked about each one of the prayer times one by one, their times one by one. But before we got to the dawn prayer, we started with noon prayer like the scholars usually do. Dhuhr, then Asr, then Maghrib, then Isha. And then before getting to Fajr prayer, we talked about combining and shortening, because combining and shortening pertains to these 4 prayers, not to the dawn prayer. So we talked about these 4 prayers one by one with their proofs and details. And then we talked about combining and shortening. And then we talked about dawn prayer. Then we talked about voluntary prayers. And then we started talking about additional conditions of prayer, purification for prayer. There's a book of purification. So purification for prayer here is something specific to prayer. The book of purification is broader than what's for prayer. And then we talked about covering. Then we talked about the Qibla. And included under talking about the Qibla is when you don't have to face the Kaaba in your prayer. Now we're talking about Adhan and Iqamah. Now, what did Abu Shuja' do? Because this is an amalgamation of the explanations of Abu Shuja'. Where did the sequence come from here? It's not following exactly the sequence of Abu Shuja'. Why? For the benefit of arranging the information in a different way, or else just going to be, and this is not a verbatim explanation of Abu Shuja' what we're reading here. It's the synopsis of the explanations of Abu Shuja'. Some of them. It has its own arrangement, but most of it is just explanations of the book of Abu Shuja', the text of Abu Shuja'. It doesn't follow Abu Shuja''s sequence exactly for the benefit of doing something different, for that benefit, to present the information with a different sequence. Because Abu Shuja', he talked about Adhan and Iqamah with the sunnahs of prayer. He has a section for sunnahs of prayer. Sunnahs of the prayer. Not the voluntary prayers, but sunnahs for the prayer. And as you can see here, this Adhan and Iqamah got squeezed in after talking about the Qibla, which is a condition of prayer, and then before talking about the integrals of prayer. And Adhan and Iqamah are sunnahs of prayer. So number 1 is not following Abu Shuja''s sequence. Number 2, why is here? Because if you want to just imagine that you're going to pray, then you're going to make your purification, and you're going to cover, then you're going to face the Qibla, and then you're going to call the Adhan, and then you're going to call the Iqamah, and then you're going to start praying. So the integrals of prayer come. That's why the sequence is like that here. And then goes on with the integrals. And this book is still, the book of prayer is still under construction. Book of purification is done. Book of zakat is done. Book of fasting is done. Bi'awnillahi ta'ala. So the author says Adhan and Iqamah. Abu Shuja' mentioned 2 customs of the Salaf and the Khalaf. Salaf, those are the early Muslims, the predecessors who are an authority for the Muslims. And the Khalaf, the latter day Muslims, we're in that generation, the generation of the Khalaf. Yani Salaf are the first three generations, and the Khalaf are all the subsequent generations, first 3 centuries. And then the Khalaf are the subsequent centuries. Abu Shuja mentioned two customs of the Salaf and the Khalaf, but under the section of Sunnahs of prayer. What are those two customs? Emphatic communal recommendations, according to what is accurate. Not more than recommendations, not obligatory. Emphatic means should not be left out. Communal, yani, someone needs to do it. Recommendations, not obligatory, according to what is accurate. Two special dhikrs. The adhan is a dhikr, and the iqamah is a dhikr. Two special dhikrs that are sanctioned by the book and the sunnah. The sunnah, like in Sunan Abi Dawood, and sanctioned by the consensus. There's no difference in opinion about the sanctioning of these two special dhikrs, the adhan and the iqamah. These two emphatic recommendations, these two special dhikrs, are performed before the prescribed prayer. Prescribed prayer means the 5 prayers. 5 prayers are the prescribed prayers. Other than a funeral prayer, because funeral prayer is a type of obligation, but you don't call adhan and iqamah for them. And other than a pledged prayer, that means a vowed prayer, menzoor, even though that's an obligation. Nor before voluntary prayer, you don't call adhan and iqamah for before voluntary prayers. Even if congregation is sanctioned for the voluntary prayer, like Eid prayer, it's sanctioned to be done in congregation, there's still no adhan or iqamah for that, since nothing of the sort was narrated. Uninterruptedly done, yani not interrupted, not disrupted. Yani you start it and you finish it without interrupting it, for other than the likes of a blind man walking into a hole. So you're calling the adhan, then you see a blind man about to walk into a hole, then you can disrupt this adhan or iqamah so to warn the blind man from the hole. Otherwise, for other than the likes of this, then you complete them without interrupting them. Done only by a sane Muslim, preferably purified. Yani, whoever's calling the adhan and the iqamah should have wudu and ghusl. It's not a condition though. Especially for the iqamah, should be purified. Done loud, yani called aloud, without straining your voice though. By someone who's nice voiced, by a sane Muslim who's loud and nice voiced, and he has a nice voice. That's recommended. Standing somewhere elevated, this adhan caller recommended for him to stand somewhere elevated. Facing the Qibla is not a condition though, because facing the Qibla is only an obligation for prayer, not for anything else. And this one who calls the adhan should be male according to some. Yani, should be restricted to a male according to some. And if the adhan caller is a female according to others who didn't restrict it to the males, then this female who's calling the adhan, this mu'adhina, is doing it for women. So if the adhan caller is a female, she should be doing it for women. Like a group of women got together and then they want to pray the prescribed prayers, then one of them could call the adhan for those women without imitating men. So she doesn't, for example, like go up on the high place and maybe she's gonna spread her legs a little. That's not conditioned though, but I'm just trying to give you the image of a man. And she just has her head high and her arms high, and she's gonna do it like a man. She shouldn't do it like the men. Like How would she call the adhan not like the men? Like, she might just not be very loud and uh for example, she might not be very loud, for example. Our sheikh said the Shafi'i school is that a woman makes iqamah for herself and the women. For herself, when she's praying alone, she makes iqamah, and she makes iqamah for the women when she prays with the women. And it is not recommended for her to call the adhan for herself. Not recommended. So it's not haram, but not recommended in the Shafi'i school for her to call the adhan for herself, nor for the women. But if she calls the adhan under her breath, it is not disliked. That's not how a man calls the adhan. The man doesn't call the adhan under his breath. For congregation other than funeral prayer or pledged prayer, it is recommended to call out as-salatu jami'ah. So as for the adhan, linguistically, it is informing or broadcasting. Someone might assume adhan means something like hearing, because it looks like to someone that has the same letters as the word udhun, the udhun is the ear. But the adhan is informing and broadcasting. Adhan originally is, basically, adhan is an alias for the name ta'deen. Ta'deen. So the original noun is ta'deen. Ta'deen. Because they say adhana. Adhana. He called the adhan. Adhana yu'adhinu ta'dhina wa adhana. So ta'dhin is the original name, and this name, this dhikr, its name is ta'dhin, and it has an alias, which is adhan. So this alias is more famous. That's just like salam is the alias for taslim, and kalam is the alias for taklim. So adhan is the alias for ta'dhin. Legally, it is the special dhikr for broadcasting an obligatory prayer, meaning it's time. It's time. Not that you're about to start, but that the time came in. Adhan is for informing that the time came in. Its recommendation for a congregation of men is undisputed. Allah says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 58, وَإِذَا نَادَيْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. And when you are summoned to the prayer, etc. So, summoned to the prayer, called. Summoned here means called. So that refers to the call to prayer, the event. This recommendation is also confirmed for a loner, someone who's not praying in congregation. In the open land, like he's out in the field, as well as in town. He's in town, he's in the village or in the city. She's still called the adhan, according to the school. Al-Bukhari reported from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, فَإِذَا كُنْتَ فِي غَنَمِكَ وَبَادِيَتِكَ فَأَذَّنْتَ بِالصَّلَاةِ فَارْفَعْ صَوْتَكَ بِالنِّدَاءِ. When you are out with your flock and in your outing, and you call the adhan for prayer, raise your voice with the call. Its phrases are doubled. That means you say its phrases twice, except the 4 takbirs in the beginning. So quadrupled. The takbirs in the beginning are quadrupled. And the rest of the sentences in the middle are doubled. And then there's a single tawheed at the end. A single saying of La ilaha illallah at the end. And so the adhan is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So that's 4. But notice here how we connected 2. The first two and the second two. The first pair and the second pair are ran together. So you could say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's four. And you could run the first pair together and the second pair together, and then you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's two. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's two. So the takbir is quadrupled there. And then you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. So that's doubled. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So that's doubled. And there's no wow here. So don't say wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. There's no wow there. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. That's doubled. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Notice also that ha there in falah. When you say salah, there's a ha. You could say with a ta, like some people do. You might hear them say hayya ala salat, hayya ala salat. It's not wrong. Hayya ala al-falah. But you would hear a lot of people not say that ha. Maybe they say hayya ala al-falah, or I don't know what they might say. But there's a ha there. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Then that takbir, that double takbir is fused there also. La ilaha illallah. Our sheikhs taught us not to go beyond 6 counts in any of the extensions of the adhan. 6 counts. So try not to go beyond 6 counts. That's what Hajj Ali taught me. And then when I studied overseas, sometimes I would call the adhan in the manama, the dorm. One time I called the adhan there and I did go over 6 counts. Then Sheikh Muhammad Atrash, one of the authors of Al-Qawl al-Jali, he said to me, Ra'id, you went over 6 counts. So, yeah, I did. So try not to do that. So, for example, what's like 6 counts? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ha at the end of these sentences here. Allah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ ordered for this to be called for the 5 prayer times, to tell that the time is in. It may even be called for a missed prayer. And if one prays sets of obligations, sets like Dhuhr and Asr, Maghrib and Isha, he's praying them as sets. He calls the Adhan only for the first, but he does Iqamah for all of them. So it means he calls the Adhan, then he makes the Iqamah, then he prays Dhuhr, and he's going to pray Asr right after it. So he just stands up, makes Iqamah, not another Adhan, and then prays Asr. Same thing for Maghrib and Isha. Calls Adhan, make Iqamah, prays Maghrib, and then he's going to pray Isha right after it. So he just stands up, makes Iqamah only, doesn't say another Adhan, and then prays Isha. Unless he called it for a missed prayer. And then the time of the current one entered. He repeats it. If he called the Adhan for a missed prayer, yani a prayer he wants to make up, so then he does so. And then the time for the current prayer came in, so then he'll call another Adhan. There are also other situations when the Adhan is a prophetic recommendation, such as calling it in the ear of a newborn or troubled person when the genies haunt. Yani a person is haunted by the devil, so you could call the Adhan in his ear. Also, in the Adhan for dawn prayer, it is sunnah to say after the second Hayya ala al-falah, after you say the second one, it's sunnah to say also twice, As-salatu khayrun minan nawm. Should add the Arabic here. I won't add it now, I'll just make the space though, so I can put it. As-salatu khayrun minan nawm. Prayer is better than sleep is the meaning of that statement. It is also sunnah for the mu'adhin, the adhan caller, to pray for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the adhan. That means make salah on the Prophet with a low voice or a loud voice, and with a tune or without a tune. So after you say the complete adhan, so the last sentence is La ilaha illallah. Then you can make salah on the Prophet. You should make salah on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Despite any Wahhabis who are there, don't say, I'm not going to do it so that the Wahhabis won't be upset. Forget those guys. But yani, it could be possible you're in a situation where you want to keep the peace and not do it. But yani, be ready to make salah on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam after the adhan. Don't let it be very easy for you to not do it. You don't have to do it, but do it. And if you're not going to do it, it's definitely not because you're a coward. Let's say it that way. Only because you were wise, really. You really, really were wise, not a coward. And then you didn't do it. With a low voice or a loud voice. Yani you could make salah on the Prophet after the adhan as loud as the adhan itself. With a tune or without a tune. So you could make a salah on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam with a tune like the adhan, or you could just say it with a monotone voice without a tune. So you could say, As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulallah, or any formula like that. Does the one who's making adhan for the newborn have to have wudu? I haven't learned, but I should just go ahead and add this really quick. You'll be patient with me, so that I don't forget it, inshallah ta'ala. As-salatu khayrun minan nawm. Okay. Iqama linguistically is a source noun from the verb aqama. Aqama, past tense verb, to make something stand. Aqama yuqimu iqamatan. It names the act of standing something up. It has this name religiously because it informs about the prayer's commencement, calling the believers to stand to pray. Its wording is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Notice also there's no wow here, not what ashhadu. So you might hear someone do it, happens sometimes. So it's a good thing if you want to just teach them. Say, there's no wow here, brother. Just Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah. Qad qamati salah. Qad qamati salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. And it's called faster than the adhan. Don't say it slow like you would say the adhan. Allahu ta'ala alam. Allah knows best. We'll stop there. That's it. That's what we have here. Allah will put more information. We'll put more information, but that's all that's there for now. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك